This is Cruise Radio.
I cruise a lot, and I always sail with travel insurance. You should, too. Get a free quote today at tripinsurance.com.
Here we go.
Broadcasting from the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. This is Cruise Radio.
Christy just returned from a 7-night cruise down to the Bahamas and Grand Turk from the North Atlantic area. It was supposed to be out of Baltimore, but it went out of Norfolk. She joins us on the line. How you doing, Christy?
Hi, how are you?
Good to talk to you again. Excited to hear about Carnival Pride, and you're on one of those sailings that were that couldn't go into Baltimore as of the time of recording. Baltimore is back open now. But before we get to all of that, we'll take a step back. What made you want to take this 7-night cruise down to the Bahamas on Carnival Pride?
Two things, really. So it was spring break. I'm a teacher in New York City. So I have to plan my cruises around the school calendar. So spring break is always one that I can do. And then it was also an elite sailing through the casino program, which I don't personally get offers for, but my parents do. So I convinced them to take me on the cruise.
Very cool. So because you're up in the New York, Jersey area and, you were supposed to sail, which not really too far away in Baltimore, but you had to go down to Virginia. Did y'all actually do the transfer thing, or how did you get down to Norfolk from up there?
Yeah, we went back and forth with it, and we finally decided to do the transfer thing. We're only a 2.5-hour drive from Baltimore. But because the bus transfers were so early in the morning, I wasn't comfortable with trying to do all that in the same day. So we drove into Baltimore the night before, spent the night there, and we did the bus transfers, which actually went really, really well. I mean, aside from it being a bus, small, tight, but it was pretty smooth. I think they said we should get there around 8. We actually waited a little bit. We got there at 8:40. There was no line by the time we got there. It was just a matter of, all the check-in processes. Left at 9 and pulled into Norfolk just at 1 o'clock, actually. And when we got there, we were really happy that's the way we did it, because it was raining really hard that day. And everybody who drove or got to Norfolk on their own and chose one of those parking options that's off-site that were offered, all of their transfers and shuttles dropped them off across the street from the port. So it was just nice to have that kind of door-to-door service, especially in the rain. So it worked out really well for us. And then same thing in reverse.
Gotcha.
Just walked off the ship onto a bus and 4 hours back and we were good.
You go to embark the ship there in Norfolk. Now, you mentioned a check-in when you were in Baltimore. Did you do a lot of it in Baltimore and then get on the bus, or did all the check-in for the actual cruise itself happen once you arrived in Virginia?
The actual cruise check-in all happens in Virginia. I think what they were doing in Baltimore was just making sure anybody who got on the bus was actually booked on the cruise, because they had us kind of check in at the bus by stateroom. And then from there, we did have to go through the whole check-in process in Norfolk.
What were your first impressions walking on Carnival Pride?
I was like, okay, this does look very much like the legend, yet at the same time, it looked really different. Just like in the decor, I guess I didn't think it was going to be that different, really. I should have known better. And comfortable, I know how to get around. I know where everything is. And at the same time, I also felt like I kept missing the legend a little bit. I don't know. I think it's just kind of I get attached to the first thing I cruise on all the time.
Right.
I think tends to be my favorite. But overall, it was great. I mean, really easy to navigate. I knew exactly where to go. No confusion or anything like that. So from the get-go, I felt really good about it. You
make your way to your stateroom. Now, you said you had one of those casino offer staterooms. So what kind of stateroom did they put you in for the week, and how was it throughout the week?
Yeah, so we had 2 rooms. I was by myself in an interior, and then my parents were in a balcony. And I booked us so that we were in the same hallway. And it was great. I mean, the interior for one person, I feel like is more than enough. I mean, they're a little bigger on that ship than some of the newer ships too, obviously. So that was pretty great. My only complaint in my room was that it was a little warmer than I like, but I do travel with a fan now. So I was able to deal with that. My parents were in the balcony, and it was, typical standard, no complaints there. Yeah, it was, they actually liked the warmer room, so they were really happy. But they were great.
Nice. Let's talk about the food on your 7-night cruise here, and we'll go at the top there at the buffet at the Lido Marketplace. How was the food at the Lido deck?
The buffet was good. I've had some really hit or miss buffet experiences on the ships, and I feel like this was one of the better ones. I was even really happy. The little things. The embarkation day funfetti cheesecake was still like an actual slice of the real cake. So I was really happy about that, because a lot of the ships are changing it to like these pre-sliced squares that just aren't as good. And, I had a couple of meals and or snacks at the buffet throughout the week. Yeah, all of it was good. Nothing like exceptional, right? It's a buffet, but it was good. Had for me, it was late night. Had pizza back there a few times. That was very good. Again, sometimes the pizza on the ship isn't as good as maybe a previous time, but especially coming out of the casino late at night, that was very welcome to have there. Gaius Burgers was just as it always is, and Blue Iguana, same. So it was all consistent with what I've had before. How
many Gaius Burgers can you do in a week?
I only had one.
Yeah, I'm the same way these days.
I usually keep, unless we're doing a longer cruise or, maybe a back-to-back. Mm-hmm. I like the Gaius Burgers. They're not my favorite burger in the world, so I usually end up keeping it to one, maybe two every now and then, but yeah.
I remember when they came out, and I was doing like 9 to 11 on a 7-night cruise of these things, and I don't even know how I did it now. I must have had a stomach like a billy goat back then. I don't know. So let's talk about other food around the ship. Did you go to the steakhouse at all?
We did, and that's one of my things with the Spirit class ships is I just wish they had a little more in the food options, specialty or otherwise, but I get that they're smaller. But we did go to the steakhouse, and I wanted to do a little experiment on this trip at the steakhouse. And I was like, all right, one of you is going to get the ribeye steak, and I'm going to get the cowboy steak, and I really want to compare them, because people always say the cowboy is the best. Mm-hmm. And I have to say I disagree. My cowboy steak was actually really tough. It was very tough. And then my mother had the ribeye, and I was like, okay, now I know going forward, that is the one to get. There was a very noticeable difference. And I think my father had the lamb, which was very good. Yeah. So the steakhouse was, again, a good experience. There's definitely a few things that have changed since the first time I've been to the steakhouse, mm-hmm. That maybe aren't, an upward change, but it's still a good value and a nice change while you're on the ship.
Yeah, $49 isn't a bad deal for a steakhouse. I will say, though, and I think I'm in the same boat with you, it almost feels like, I don't know if they're maybe using, I don't want to accuse them of this, but I'm just saying my personal opinion, feels like they may be using maybe a lower quality of beef or mm-hmm. even like food in there overall. Yeah,
for sure. Even just the change in the shrimp cocktail. Mm-hmm. They're smaller. They don't have the nice, I don't know if it was avocado garnishment or so, but it was like a big deal, the shrimp cocktail.
Yeah.
And some of the menu items have changed. I think there was a skirt steak on the menu at one point, which is one of my favorites, and that's gone. So, but again, I still do like to go, especially when there's really not many other options for dinner. Mm-hmm. It's nice for at least one night.
Is that branded a Fahrenheit 555 on that ship?
You know what? I don't think it is.
Okay. Let's talk about the main dining room. How was your meals in there throughout the week, as well as the service and the quality of food?
Most of them were pretty good. Service was great. One thing that really stands out is I was very excited to be on the 7-night sailing because I haven't had a chance to try the beef Wellington on the new menu yet. And I really want to taste it. And that night was not a good menu night, it turned out. The beef Wellington really was very disappointing. And I looked at my parents and I was like, now I know this is a great night to book specialty dining in the future, because there was nothing I had that night that I enjoyed. Actually, that might have been the shrimp and crab cake. That was good for an appetizer. But otherwise, that one menu was off. I do find the new menus aren't my favorite. I think I did like the older variety a little better. But overall, the food was good. We always wound up with more than we could actually eat. Actually, there was one other, the prime rib on the elegant night, though, that wasn't good. I felt like I was eating like a boiled piece of beef. It was a very odd color. Again, it was very chewy, and so I just gave up on that. But other than those two things, it was fine. It was good.
Was the service pretty efficient?
Yeah, it was. I know sometimes it can get a little slow when you're going and it's really busy. But no, we did have the your time dining, so we didn't have the same, service staff every single night, but I think like 4 or 5 of the nights we did. So the service was very good.
All right, let's talk about the entertainment on board this 7-night cruise. I know you've seen your share of playlist production shows. Anything new or anything outside of the main theater that really caught your eye?
Yeah, so actually I was very excited that this ship did have a few playlist production shows that I had not seen. Not that they're like, they're not Broadway by any means, but they can be entertaining. I had seen 88 Keys before, I believe, on the Magic, and I enjoyed that, and I knew my parents would enjoy that, and we all did again. And then they had an 80s Pop to the Max, I think it was called, which I was very, very excited for. It wasn't my favorite of the 3, so I think I played it up in my mind a little more than it wound up being. It was good, but it wasn't my favorite. The other one was Heart of Soul, which was really good. We enjoyed that a lot. And I thought, I don't know, it's like a beach-themed one, or I forget the name of it now. I thought that was going to be on the ship, but it wasn't. So I missed out on that one. So there were 3 overall. One I thought was like great, one was good, and the other one was okay. We always enjoy some of the live music, whether it's in the atrium or like in the back by the Alchemy Bar. So we did, sit and listen to some of that from time to time. I always like, like the Family Feud, Deal or No Deal, those things. We actually had a cruise director substitute that week. It was Erin, who told us she had recently been promoted. So she's working alongside Donkey and the Flying Scotsman as like a fleet-wide cruise director. Mm-hmm. And she was fantastic. Every event that she hosted, we don't really go to like the deck parties, but we go to the military appreciation and the Deal or No Deal and the Family Feud, usually Love and Marriage, but we did end up missing it this time. But everything she hosted, I thought she was fantastic. Her energy was like right up there with Donkey and the Flying Scotsman, who are like my other favorites. So that really, really made the cruise. I did go to one comedian show. I do have to say that lounge on deck 1 for the comedy was packed every night. You really did have to go early to get a seat. We finally did that one night, and I usually enjoy the comedy a lot on the ships. I have a few favorite comedians, but this one was not it for me. He was very like staccato, like just a bunch of these little one-liners that weren't even necessarily related. I don't know. I wasn't enjoying it that much. So then I didn't really bother. I think I had already seen the other one on another ship and just gave up on comedy after that.
With this class of ship, as you're going through dry docks, they're making quite a few changes. But on this one, I believe, didn't they take out it's no longer a 2-deck nightclub. It's only 1 deck, and they put staterooms on the first floor of it. Did you notice that?
So I kept trying to figure it out, actually. And I never wound up going into the nightclub. Mm-hmm. And I remember walking, I think I guess it would be deck 2. Mm-hmm. Wherever the upper level of the nightclub is. And I remember I kept looking for it. And I don't know if it was just that it was closed. I think one night I did end up seeing in the doorway, but I never actually went in to look to see downstairs.
How were the sea days as far as crowds and congestion?
They were great. They were fine. I'm not one to spend time at the pool during the day. And, I look more for shade these days. There was one day when I tried to find a spot on Serenity that was pointless. So that was very, very crowded. But I actually So there's like the main Lido pool, right? And then there's the one that's more toward the forward, where there's like the smoking section on one side and the non-smoking on the other. I actually did end up spending some time out there one day, and it was, a great, nice, sunny day. Was able to find a chair, pushed back in the shade a little bit, and, just people watch and, have a drink and read. So it was nice. I always like to try out a trivia or two also. The arts and crafts is usually entertaining, which proves to be, again, I cannot make a paper flower for anything. And just kind of wandering around the ship. There, I would say outside of the Lido entertainment and like the trivias, I don't know that there was much else really going on the sea days. I guess that's, probably where all of the people were, like, between those two, but I was good with it. It was a great time. I also really like to have downtime and relax on the cruise, so I'm not always seeking out all of the action.
Do they shut the hatch at all, the retractable roof, during the sailing when you're in April sailing like the Northern Atlantic, or not really?
It was like partially.
Okay.
Right. I don't even know that it was halfway, but it was partially closed or partially open, I guess, however you want to look at it. And I feel like that's the way it has always been. Well, no, when I've done the Legend in December a handful of times, and then it's always shut. But other than that, I've done February and April, and it's never fully open that I've seen it yet.
Gotcha. So you did 3 ports of call on this 7-night cruise: Princess Keys, you did Grand Turk, and Freeport, Bahamas. Give us the first port and give us a highlight.
So I think Grand Turk was the first port. And that was where we chose to use the excursion that came with the elite sailing. So we went to Home Sweet Home, I think it's called. A little bit down the island. My parents had previously been there and they really enjoyed it. So when I walked off the ship and I was walking down the pier, the water, I think, was the most gorgeous I've ever seen it looking in Grand Turk. I mean, it always looks great, but this was like, you could see every rock at the bottom. There was not a speck of seaweed anywhere. And I just was like, I cannot wait to go swimming. And so we got on the bus and went down to Home Sweet Home, and it was like an entirely different body of water. It was so rough, like nobody could get in it. People kept trying. They were just getting knocked down and falling. They wouldn't allow anybody to even attempt snorkeling. So we probably only spent about 2 hours there, had lunch, which was delicious. They did a really, really nice job with the lunch, like jerk chicken, macaroni salad, a few things like that. People who were hosting at the resort were very, very nice, very welcoming, but I really wanted to swim. Like, it was just like really getting to me. So my parents were happy. They were content to leave and go back to the ship. And so I got to go swim for maybe like an hour back at the port. That was the highlight of that day, really, because the water was just so gorgeous. Nice. And I could have stayed in there much longer, but I knew I also had to get back on the ship. So I love a great beach day, and that one did not disappoint in the end.
100%. Where did you go next?
That would be Princess Key. Only my second time there. And we wound up exploring a different side than I had in the past. Really spent the time swimming. My mother and I spent most of the time in the water together. Father was just hanging out. We kind of got some chairs under one of the like tents or canopies for some shade. It was a gorgeous day, gorgeous water. I think because the swimming spaces there are, this is just my theory anyway, they're a little smaller with all of the coral and the rocks. It gets a little stirred up faster, right? So it's maybe not as crystal clear as some of the other places you go to, but it was still a great day. The one thing that did happen on that port, which wound up being really comical, we were about the first or second tender boat to go, and everybody got on, everybody sat down, and we started to pull away, and then the engine died, although we didn't actually know what had happened at the time. But then another small boat, I don't really know what they're called, had to come over and like push us back up against the ship so that they could get us all off. This wound up backing up the embarkation for everybody for like hours. So they had to take us off. They had to wait for another shuttle to come. Rather than have us go back upstairs, they took us to the I don't remember if it was the front or the back of the ship, all the way through like the length of, I guess that was deck A. So we were like in all the crew quarters. So that was interesting. It was almost like, a little free tour of places that we've never gotten to see before. But by the time, and I was the first or second, by the time we got there, it was like 11:30, and it was supposed to be much earlier. So they did extend our time there by an hour. People were still naturally very, very upset, but they did the best they could with, I guess, one of the boats broke down. What can you do about it? From what I heard, they had to borrow some from Half Moon.
Okay.
I didn't realize they were that close together, but I guess they are. So that was a little bit of, kind of in the end, it was like a funny experience, but maybe not if I was waiting for 4 hours. Maybe it wouldn't have been funny.
Yeah, a lot of those workers on Half Moon actually live in Eleuthera. I believe it's, I want to say like 20-ish miles between the two, so not that far.
Okay, yeah, I didn't realize they were that close. Okay.
Yeah. I didn't ask you this before, so I want to kind of just hop back in the interview a little bit. The casino, I know you were on a casino deal, but we didn't actually talk about the casino as far as like the smoke situation. And does this ship have an annex at all, like a non-smoking casino?
No, they don't have the non-smoking casino. They do have what I think is a pretty distinct separation from the non-smoking side to the smoking side. And I would say I spent the majority of my time on the non-smoking side, and I didn't feel that it was that bad, really. I also spend a lot of time in Atlantic City, so it could be that I'm just a little more accustomed to it. But it really didn't seem that bad to me. Now, if you went over onto the smoking side, obviously it was very heavy. They did take that bar out, so it did open up space quite a bit. So the casino didn't feel like you were sitting on top of each other, like the way the Legend has felt in the past. So I think that was probably a good move, taking out that bar. I have to say it was not as crowded as I thought it would be, considering it was an elite sailing. Because, sometimes like you cannot get on a slot machine if you want to. I mean, actually, it was a really great cruise for me. I had some great luck on this one. So the casino was a good time.
New favorite slot machine is the Buffalo. Do they have it on there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they have many versions of the Buffalo. And I will say I was playing one of the like Wonder 4 Extreme, where you can play like the 4 games in one.
Mm-hmm.
And I always played 2 Buffalo, and then on this particular game, 2 Timberwolf. And the casino had just opened. It was, the first night. I was actually playing a different game first. Everybody next to me was doing great except for me. So I was like, I'm moving. And I went over to this Buffalo one, and within 10 minutes, I hit $5,000, and
Whoa.
I couldn't have been more excited.
That's awesome.
It
$5,000.
set the tone for the whole cruise. It really set the tone for the cruise for me.
There's White Buffalo, Buffalo Extension, a Golden Buffalo. There's like probably 10 or 12 different ones of the Buffalo machine. But we were on Sun Princess and walking through, and this woman, it was a 60 or 80 cent spin. I can't remember. And sure enough, she hit for 10 grand. Wow. Good for you. It was the very first night as well.
Yep.
Yeah, it's wild.
Your
final port of call was what?
Freeport.
Okay, and how was your day there?
Typical. I went back and forth with actually trying to leave the port because I've never. One of the reasons is because you're only there till 1. So it's like, what are you going to do? And I don't know. I don't want to drop all this money for like an hour or two. Played with the idea of going over, I guess, to like is it Port Lucaya area? Mm-hmm. But then even when I just priced out the cab fare, it was like, this isn't worth it. Like I'm not doing this. So, we just walked around the port for maybe an hour, popped in a couple of the shops, and then got back on the ship. I'm really, really excited to see what happens with this celebration key. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like it's, you book a cruise that goes to Freeport, and like you really have to weigh that decision sometimes. There's just not much to do there, Yeah, no, 100%. You make your way back to the Norfolk area. Any excitement, any kind of like turbulent weather or anything heading back to Virginia? A little bit. There was one night that they had the bags out by the elevators. I enjoy the rocking of the ship quite a bit. So, especially when I go to sleep, it's like being a baby, I guess. I don't know. It was a little rocky, but nothing horrible. Nothing was flying around. I didn't see people getting sick anywhere. Usually it's just, you pass somebody and you laugh at each other because nobody can walk straight. Right.
Right.
But overall it was fine.
So you dock in at Norfolk, Virginia there. How was your debark process, and how did it work funneling y'all out of the ship and onto the buses? Was that some like organized chaos happening?
It was a lot smoother than I thought it would be. So we had the Platinum waiting area. We went there right at about the time that they said to. I usually try to get there a little earlier because I know they usually actually start earlier, but what we got there, I think it was 7:30. We sat down and I think we were called off within 5 minutes. When we got into the terminal, the only delay we hit there was, I guess it was kind of twofold. They would not let you on the escalator if you were not going to have a free hand. I think like my mother or my father, like somebody wasn't going to have a free hand because, my mother has a little more struggles, with like the luggage and like walking long distances. So she doesn't really do escalators. So we already knew we were kind of going to have to go toward the elevator. I don't know what the backup was because on our way coming on the ship, we walked on the elevator, got on no problem. Getting off the ship, and we probably had to wait at least 30 minutes to get in the elevator and get downstairs. From there, we grabbed our luggage, I guess they did facial recognition. I don't remember quite honestly at this point. But when we got outside, just kind of followed the signs back to where the buses were. And we could see that the bus that was waiting was kind of full. So I was trying to walk like a little slow to get on a less full bus. Right. And we had a porter with us to help us with the luggage. And so he was trying like, yeah, we'll wait. But they had us get on. It wound up being fine. It wasn't as full as I thought. So they literally had us walk right on a bus. There was no checking in at the bus this time. I'm guessing they just trusted that anybody who was there had just walked off the ship. Mm-hmm. And, sat down. They gave us some water and a sandwich. And it took 4 hours back. There was really no problem with traffic or anything. So it was very smooth.
Do you have any first-time tips to offer anyone sailing that 7-nighter out of the North Atlantic down to the Bahamas, or any first-timers for Carnival Pride?
I think I was really thinking about that too. I think for me, and on this one especially, it was like just, we all have we make these plans, or I would say a lot of people probably do, everything you want to do. And sometimes things just don't go as planned, right? For one, just having to get from Baltimore to Norfolk, that obviously wasn't planned when we booked the cruise. Even like Princess Key, trying to get to the island and, the tender not working and that whole process, right? So I think just having that in mind, that sometimes there is going to be a hiccup, and like just still trying to make the best of it so that it doesn't ruin your whole time. I think that's probably the biggest one for me.
Looking back, what was the biggest highlight of this 7-night cruise for you and the family?
The biggest, I think, was really just having that time on the cruise with my parents. I thought about it a lot on the cruise, and I realized I had never, at least that I can remember, I've never like gone away with just me and my parents. It's always been like either with both or one of my sisters. So that was nice because it was something I'd never experienced before. And it was really fun. Obviously the casino, winning was a highlight. And I also think I keep looking at pictures from that day at Grand Turk. And I think that was probably another one, probably in that order. Yeah. Quality time, casino hit, and a really, really awesome time swimming in Grand Turk. So
final thoughts of Carnival Pride.
I really do love this class. I could almost say it's my favorite, although, there are things I would like that it doesn't have. It's so cozy feeling. We went on it for the Legend for Christmas. And the whole time I felt like this is the perfect ship for a Christmas cruise. And it's like, cold outside, because it just really does feel so homey and cozy. I didn't think when I had first seen this class and, coming off of newer ships that I would like it as much as I do, but I really do. The size, that kind of space to person ratio never feels like you're jam-packed on there with, a few thousand other people. I would definitely get on it again. I do So like I said, I do prefer the Legend just a little bit more, but that's probably just because of like nostalgia or habit. The Pride has the movies on Lido, which is the one thing I said I missed so much. So it definitely, has a lot going for it.
We've been talking with Christy about her 7-night cruise on board Carnival Pride. Christy, thank you so much for sharing your review, and enjoy your time off this summer.
Oh, thanks so much. You too.
Just back from a cruise? Let's talk about it. Email Doug at cruiseradio.net.
A big question we get at Cruise Radio is, how do I know if I need trip insurance? Simple answer. If you're getting on a plane, taking a road trip, or getting on a cruise ship, you need to have travel insurance. Hey, it's Doug Parker from my friends at tripinsurance.com. Not only does tripinsurance.com protect your vacation investment, but it also gives you peace of mind in case anything were to go wrong on your trip. How do they do it? They offer 3 different types of trip insurance policies. Good, better, and best. One policy for every vacation budget. But it doesn't just stop there. They're up to 40% lower when you shop around on other comparison sites. Plus, tripinsurance.com offers 24-hour customer support before, during, and after your trip, online claims assistance, and travel alerts to let you know what's going on at your destination. But find out for yourself. Check out tripinsurance.com.
All right, Dougie, let's see what we got for you, buddy. Cruise Radio is produced at the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. Get cruise news, ship reviews, and money-saving tips every Thursday on Cruise Radio. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show. If you want to help spread the word, give Cruise Radio a 5-star review. Find Cruise Radio where you listen to your favorite podcast or online at cruiseradio.net. I'm your announcer,